On this week's episode of Work Trends, we're talking how to fix hiring with Tim Sackett. Welcome to the Work Trends podcast from Talent Culture. I'm your host, Meghan M. Biro. Every week, I interview interesting people and brands who are reimagining work. For more information, be sure to check us out at talentculture.com and join us live on Twitter every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern using the hashtag WorkTrends. Today's guest is Tim Sackett. He is a 20-year HR pro who's led HR organizations and worked for HR tech vendors. He is a friend of mine. I'm really excited he's here. He has a new book, The Talent Fix, and it's a guide for building a better talent acquisition team, which is totally near and dear to our hearts, right? So welcome to Work Trends, Tim.
Thank you so much.
Tell us about what's happening with you.
Oh my gosh, what's not happening? I actually run a company, which a lot of people are always like, what do you do? And we laugh about it so I run a staffing company out of Michigan, and it's contract staffing, IT engineering stuff. And then like a decade ago, I started getting into this whole writing thing and speaking, and then I just launched the new book. And Meghan, are you like a real goals person? Like, do you like write down goals and then make sure you like check them off kind of person?
You know what's really funny? Yes and no is my most honest answer for you. Some weeks I'm totally on it, and then other weeks I'm like, I just want to go and be creative and not have any rules and brainstorm. So that's my answer for you.
I know, like, I am not, but my wife is. Like, she's major, like, goal-oriented, like, high performer that way. And I've always just been like, oh, it has to get done. I'm going to do it. And so December 31st, I did, like, the New Year's resolution, like, the one goal. And I was like, okay, I'm going to write a book. And the hard part for me is I do a lot of blog writing, and I have thousands and thousands of blog posts. And I always knew I could write a 500 to, 1,000 word post. Like, I've wrote a million of those. So, like, that was easy. But when someone says, hey, can you write a 60,000 word book? All of a sudden now that becomes like this, like, you're like, oh my gosh, there's no possible way, But so I did. I actually did the resolution, and then I signed a contract to make sure that I had a deadline. And then last year on Halloween Day, it was due. And so I had it done and turned it in. And then it takes, all the editing and all the other stuff they do to, finally get it out. So it was out a couple weeks ago, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Congrats, my friend. I'm super excited. And I will say, as somebody who's also been writing for about a decade, you're inspiring me because, believe it or not, I'm one of those people too that has like thousands and thousands of blog posts, but yeah. I don't actually have a full book yet. To your point, you have to make it a goal. So I'm real proud of you. I know others and your other friends and colleagues are too, Tim. What led you though to that moment where you said, I have to write it now?
Well, it was funny. I actually didn't write the book that I want to write. Like, I almost had to write a starter book to show, and Sherm produced a book, and they were great to work with. And they, I kind of came to them and said, hey, here's the idea I have. And they're like, that's a really great idea. We're not going to let you write that one. And it was because it was a little maybe too controversial for what maybe they wanted for their readers. They know, kind of what their audience is. And so they said, let's come up with some other ideas. And so we came up with that. And I think part of it was, and you get this, I know, we both kind of have this, like an audience that comes and we engage the audience, which then kind of makes us more accessible. But then what you get is a ton of questions. Oh, well, what would you do with this? And how would you deal with this? And again, when you first start doing it, you love it. And then all of a sudden it becomes almost like a full-time job. It's overwhelming, the amount of people reaching out, asking for stuff, asking for help. And so I get that, like on a daily basis, I get like heads of TA that will come and say, hey, Tim, like my shop is broken. What would you do? And I'm like, well, there's a million answers to all those different questions. And so the idea for the book was, if I came in to run your TA shop right now, from day one, even like from the interview process of being selected as the person that's going to run your shop, and what would I do? And so that's really what it is. And it's very much in my voice, which is a little bit snarky, a little bit fun, a little bit entertaining at the same time. Like, here's practical ways that I would actually go about that job.
Well, you are snarky, but in a lovable way.
I hope so.
I love getting emails from you because it's always like, what I'm going to open it and it's going to be some big surprise. And I think that's part of your personality is you don't always know what's coming out of Tim's mouth. That's kind of exciting for us. So thank you for being born.
Yeah. I think my wife would probably disagree with that sometimes because she's the same way. She doesn't know what's going to come out of my mouth either. You know, I tell people like, Chris Dunn was kind of my mentor in this, right? He got me into writing, and Chris, started Fistful of Talent and writes at the HR Capitalist. And he's he's like you and I. I mean, he's an ultra writer. Like he writes all the time. And one of the things that he got on early on was like, you know what? Some days you're going to write something and you're going to go, I don't know. It's like, doesn't seem good enough. He's like, just post it. Like when you're writing every day, sometimes you write stuff that's brilliant. Sometimes you write stuff that's garbage, and most of it's just in the middle someplace. And sometimes I write something and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is my opus, right? This is it. Like I wrote something so fantastic. I can't wait to publish it. And you throw it out there the next morning, you're waiting for the comments and nothing happens. And
nothing.
Don't you guys know, like my heart
Don't you understand where I am right now in my life and my career?
The classic example for me, because I always tease that I'm the world's foremost expert in workplace hugging, because like 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote a post about workplace hugging that usually it took me maybe 10 minutes to write. It literally was an idea that came and I threw it out and I didn't think anything of it. And it went completely viral. And it continued like every week I get comments and people sharing it, and I get calls from like the San Diego Radio Zoo morning show going, hey, we got Tim Sackett on the line.
That's hysterical. That really is. And I love the fact that you are talking about culture, digital culture, social media culture, and it's so important now in the talent scope, right? So why is it important to think about who owns talent right now?
For me, I think it's one of the biggest failures that we see in organizations and talent acquisition, because it's the one question I really try to force every head of HR or TA to go and ask their executive team is that one question of who owns recruiting, who owns talent in our organization. And they think that what you're asking them for is because they want to look back in your eyes and they want to point to you and give you that vote of confidence and go, oh, Tim, it's you. You're the one that owns it. And the reality is that's that first step to failing at talent, because it has to be the people that actually make the selection, right? It has to be those hiring managers at the ground level. And I try to tell people, especially heads of HR, heads of talent, that are like, look, if you took your team out on a team building exercise tomorrow and you guys got hit by a train and everybody died, your organization wouldn't stop. The hiring manager would go and they would get their team in there and they would mourn your loss, and then they would go, by the way, hey, we gotta fill the position. We have a developer position. We gotta fill it. What do you guys think? Who do you know? They would just start working a natural process of just trying to find somebody. And if that's really the goal of every company, that should be, is that I want all those hiring managers to own their own team, own their own talent. And then it allows HR and talent acquisition to be this great partner in terms of how I can help you. But when they come and say, they go into a meeting and they'll say, hey, Mary, why aren't you filling that position on your team? And they're like, well, your talent acquisition isn't finding me anybody. You failed. You're done at that point. Because it shouldn't be that. Yeah. The executive should look back at Mary's face and say, what are you talking about recruiting for? That's not that. Your job is to fill your team. What are you doing, right? Because it's super powerful once you get there. And I've been in a couple of organizations that were that way. And I ran TA for Applebee's. And so you're talking 2,000 restaurants, 125,000 employees. And the one thing they did was go to a general manager who's the number one person in every location. And they said, look, you're not going to be a victim. You're never going to complain about not having enough talent because it's your fault. So if you come to us and complain, then what you're saying is you need to replace me. I'm no good at my job, because that's the number one job you have. And so there's a number of ways to do that, right? You can be great at recruiting. You can be great at retention. You can be great, figure it out, but it's your job. And then go and ask for help, right? You can ask to HR for help. You can ask talent acquisition for help. They'll prop you up and they will give you every resource they have to help you, but you have to own it. And that's so powerful.
It's so powerful. Thank you for saying that, because I think so often you're right. It's what else can people do for me? And you're probably in the wrong career if you're asking that question. You
Right.
got to take control, because I know as a former recruiter myself, you're looking at that clock going, I have 12 hours to fill this position. And if I don't, it's on me. To your point, it's not on the team. You got to own it. So I love that message. So how can people out there who are struggling to build that right TA team, what can they do? Like, what's that first step?
Yeah, we've both worked in recruiting, and I've worked at both sides of the desk. So I run a staffing firm. I've actually worked in staffing, but I've also spent about a decade on the corporate talent acquisition side. And the one thing I saw when I went into corporate talent acquisition shops, and I still do a lot of consulting with corporate talent acquisition as well, is when I go in, I usually find about half the team they're not really recruiters. I mean, they love being a recruiter in a corporate job, and they love that $85,000 salary, and they love working 9 to 5 and not taking work home. Like, all that's great, but they're not recruiters. They're administering a recruiting process, right? They're posting a job on their career site, and then they're sitting around waiting for somebody to apply, and then they'll plow that person through their process. But that's not recruiting. I mean, that's not real recruiting.
No, it's not.
And so when I talk to talent acquisition leaders and we go through and they want me to fix their shop, usually the first focus is on, let's take a look at your team. Let's see what you got. And because they want to have real recruiting, that's what they feel, right? And then when we go through and take a look, I'll say, okay, well, gosh, half your team, 3/4 of your team probably needs to go away. And they're like, oh no, Tim, like, they're really great people.
Yep.
Like, I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm saying they're not recruiters.
Right.
And, that's the problem. Like, you want a recruiting team, but you're asking people who don't want to recruit to be recruiters. And that's the process. And again, it's farming versus like being assassins, being killers, being, hunters kind of thing. Recruiting is all about going out and finding the best talent. It's not about filtering through the talent that is available that wants to come to work for your average pay, your average benefits, and your average location. That's not recruiting. That's just administering a process, and it's really kind of the start of a death spiral to your company. If that's what you're doing. So I really focus on, like, let's get people in here to be killers. And then the question is how do you do that? Because the first thing I see is, like, the heads of TA, the light bulb will pop on, and they'll go, okay, we're going to go hire staffing people, and we're going to bring them into our environment. And so they bring them into their environment and then ask them to do the same job that those other people were doing, which is just administering a recruiting process. And guess what? We're all human. If you ask me, like, here, I was over here, I was a killer. I'm like going through and staffing, I'm finding all these people, and all of a sudden now I'm in corporate, and you're just kind of like, hey, slow down, like, make it, like, the culture always wins, right? The culture will take that great recruiter and turn them into a piece of garbage within like 90 days. Yeah. And so you have to change also. Not only you have to change the culture what you're internally, so you have to make it more of a marketing sales driven culture, more of an activity based culture. You actually have to have really great measurables and actually hold them accountable to those. So it's basic performance management. And so Megan, this is what I find is that I go in to fix talent or talent acquisition or recruiting or talent attraction, and what I spend most of my time is teaching a leader how to performance manage. I'm
not surprised. And also giving the bad news that like half of your team needs to go. They're not the right fit for sitting in that seat because it's hard. I mean, recruiting is hard. I don't care what side of the desk you're on or what form of recruiting you're doing. You have to love people to be a recruiter. That's the one. You have to love it, and you have to have that eye of the tiger, that hunger in your stomach to make a move and have the gut reaction to quickly know this is working or this isn't working and get out of it and move on to your next big thing.
Yeah, and when I go into an organization, we kind of change the measurements and change the culture and say, hey, now we're going to be kind of a hunting, kind of a function versus a farming function. And I tell the leaders, like, there's two things that are going to happen. One is you're going to say, Tim, I want to keep everybody, right? I want to give them a chance to show me they want to recruit, because they all will tell you they want to recruit because nobody wants to lose that great job. And I said, okay, we can do that, but within 90 days, half the team will leave, and they'll leave for a number of reasons. One is they'll go and actually transfer internally to another job that pays really well, but they don't have to work hard because they're recruiters. They're recruiters and they know those jobs. They'll self-select out and just go to work for another corporate recruiting job where they know they don't have to work hard because that leader over there has no idea what they're doing, or you're going to fire them. So in 90 days, that's going to happen. Or you can just go day one and say, you know what, half of your team is just that you're going to go away. We're going to terminate you guys, give you good severance. Thank you very much. Love you, but you're not the right fit for what we need. And they're like, well, we need those people though to fill these jobs. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, if you really turn on the right recruiting, you'll be fine for the first 90 days and hire some more people in, get them into the right culture, and you'll be good. And they never, almost every single time, they never want to start with the termination, and they always let people self-select out. And so they have this now painful kind of, I'm slowly tearing the Band-Aid off for 90 days. And every time, at least half the team is gone at the end of 90 days. And then they go back to me and they go, oh, you were right. And I'm like, yeah, I've done this a couple times.
Been to this rodeo before. Hey, listen, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And in this case, it's technology. How has talent acquisition gotten more complicated?
The tech world is insane right now.
It's insane.
When it comes to HR and talent acquisition, I think, and it's so insane, I think it's overwhelming for a normal leader. And I mean, talk about really good, like people that we would look at and say, that's a solid head of HR, that's a solid head of talent. Those people are overwhelmed. So you can imagine someone who's struggling and it's so far over their head that they just kind of give up on the whole thing and they'll just go, oh, I guess we're just going to use whatever we have and we'll keep using this broken tech or whatever it might be. And so there's a few things that happen. One for me is like, if you suck at recruiting, like if you're just not a good recruiting, and so I have a lot of people that will come and say, well, we just need a new ATS. And then I'll say, well, what ATS are you using? And they'll give me the name. And I'm like, that's not really a bad ATS. It's actually fairly good, But to them, it's broken because it wasn't implemented. It's not being used, blah, blah, blah. And they think that the new tech is going to actually come in and make them better. And the tech that they're going to choose, that to replace probably does about 90 to 95% of what the old tech does for them. And so I go, look, if you already suck at recruiting, the technology is just going to make you suck faster. Because that's what the technology does, right? It just allows us to move faster and more efficiently. It doesn't actually make us recruit better. Like you already have to be good at recruiting, and then technology will actually make you, better at it. But I see so often, so like my advice is like, first become like the best users of the tech you have. Like every tech company that you talk to, you'll go and say, okay, hey, I want to talk to the company that's using your tech the best. If you become that poster child for them, what I usually find is almost 99% of the time is they'll go, oh my gosh, we don't have to change tech. Our tech we have is fine. It's like, yeah, it's kind of designed to work that way. Now again, if you're using an ATS that you've used from like a decade ago, well, yeah, there's better tech on the market, right? There's going to be stuff that's designed in the last 36 to 24 months that will blow that out of the water. But the reality is, if you chose something 3 years ago and you're choosing something, 3 years later, more than likely, there's probably very little difference. And we see this with like leaders that change jobs, right? They go from, ABC manufacturing to, DEF manufacturing. And when they go to DEF, they're like, well, we need to change that ATS. And all they're doing is changing from the ATS they came to because that's what they're familiar with. And so again, like there's always a pushback on, is that really what's needed? The landscape of technology is changing so fast right now. There's so many options. I think, William Tincup, they estimate like probably 20,000 pieces of HR tech on the market. Nobody can keep on top of that. I demo.
Nobody. Yeah.
I probably demo 150 a year, and people think I'm insane. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh my gosh, you know everything. I'm like, no, I still know a fraction of what's out there.
It's just a fraction when you really look at the numbers. And what I'm hearing you say, and it's so refreshing, is that tech is here. It's also causing a massive amount of confusion for people. And the bottom line is, you either are really good at what you're doing and you should be recruiting and in the talent space, or you need to get the heck out and get out fast, because it's only going to become worse for you and shine a light on maybe it's not the right career for you.
Well, it is a very high visibility position. It used to be, the people that were running talent were just kind of one of those, kind of silos within HR, and really the head of HR was the person kind of running the show. And more, I'm seeing really major corporations where that chief people officer or that head of talent really probably has more influence in the organization than a lot of people. I mean, sometimes even more than the CIO or CFO or whatever. Like they're because if you go and take a look at most CEOs and you kind of analyze their annual speeches and stuff, every single one of them will sit there and go, oh, talent's our most important factor for our success. Well, if that's the case, then your number one person in charge of talent has a really, really valuable job and a really great access to the highest levels of the organization. So it's a great time to be in that job. It's also super stressful because now, like, you better be good. And like you said, if you're not, you better get out. And I'm not one to say if you don't know tech, you should get out of it. Like I felt like 3 or 4 years ago that I didn't really understand the tech scene within my own, HR and TA group very well. And I literally just started going out and demoing. And what you'll find is that these tech companies will actually teach you about their tech. They'll teach you about the words that you don't understand. You can kind of go to them in a safe environment because they want to sell to you and ask them questions that are very elementary, and they don't like judge you on it. But they'll help educate you. And then also a cool thing happens is that the people who are their buyers, their users, they'll start sharing really innovative things that those companies are doing. And even if you decide not to buy the tech, you still have the ideas. And you can usually go back in your own tech or in your own system and say, oh, well, I can do this. Like we can do this on our own. And so I found it was a great development for me personally to go through and do those demos. And I always encourage people, and they always come back and say, oh, but then, I'll get 100 calls from the sales rep trying to sell me. And I'm like, no, just tell them that you're not interested. Just shut them down.
Yeah.
Be a recruiter. How do you shut down that one candidate that won't stop calling you asking for the job? You shut them down. Shut the salesperson down the same way.
Thinking about tech, and this is so interesting, you talk about how Steve Jobs would have designed HR. Give us the scoop on that.
Well, if you think about, Jobs and how he did HR, is that he got rid of all the nonsense right away. And then he also simplified. If we think about traditional HR and how it was designed, it was all about compliance and covering our own butts, right? It was that's how HR people work. Like we did we're going to do a new process to fill out a change of address. And we're going to do it. And so that with like that one time the person came in and said, hey, by the way, you didn't fill out your new open enrollment packet. And they're like, I never got it. And they're like, I moved in June. And they're like, well, you never filled out the proper form. So that's not our fault. That's your fault. You no longer have insurance. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. So we did everything to protect ourselves and kind of cover our own butts and make our job easier. Jobs would have turned that around and said, no, your client is that employee. How do you make it super simple for them? What's the easiest process to put in place? And the difficult part of that is simple processes are really hard to design and develop. And HR tends to have complex processes. And so we tend to do the easy way out. We just do a million steps. We make sure it covers our own butt. We make sure it makes us do less work. And then we throw all of this stuff back on to our people. And if Jobs would have come in, he instantly would have blown that up and said, no, I mean, think about how easy it is to listen to music on an iPod or iPhone Apple doesn't have the best tech. I mean, I think technologists across the board would kind of admit that. It's not the best technology. There's better technology on the market. They have it's the easiest to use tech. Mm-hmm. I mean, my mom can get an iPhone and the next day she's sending me messages and sending me videos and doing all this stuff, and she's 72 years old. Can't do that on an Android. Like she would be totally confused. But the Android's better tech.
Well, and I think you have to be willing to change and try. And I think that's the big message here for corporate HR. It's okay to fail, but you got to get in there. You got to dig. And that's the story right now. Dig, get those answers. I mean, speaking of answers, what advice do you wish to give every single HR leader, like now that we have you in real time? Like, what's your one thing you would say, just go do that tomorrow?
Stop doing major projects and start testing everything. And here's the what I'm talking about is that in HR and in talent acquisition, we love doing like we're going to do a major project. We have a brand new program we're going to roll out, and then we jam it on to an entire 10,000 person organization. On May 1st, we're rolling out the new way to apply for a job, and it fails miserably every time. It fails. It takes a year to finally get legs or whatever. Instead of going to one hiring manager who has major pain, let's say it's like an IT manager who just is underwater and can't find people or whatever, and we go and say, you know what, we want to test something with you. We're going to try something new that we think is going to really help you. And they're like, oh my gosh, anything, please. Yeah. So now they're a willing participant, right? And so now we're working with them. We're going to test out this new process or this new technology or whatever it might be. And then if it works, it's the greatest thing ever, because now I have another hiring manager coming to me going, oh my gosh, I saw what you did with Jill. Can you do the same thing with my group? Okay, wait a minute. We're testing over here. It's an alpha. You can be the beta, right? We'll test with you. And so we'll do that. And then little by little, what you start to see is all these successful tests. You start to roll it out to the organization that way, and you have full adoption. Everybody loves it. Because little by little, you actually tested it out first. And then with that first manager, if it failed, You just go, oh, we're going to stop doing that. It didn't work. But you know what? We're going to try something new now. We're going to adjust. We'll come back to you. We'll do this. And that's such a better way to run HR and talent in an organization than how we do it now, which is, oh, no, we have to treat everybody exactly the same, Tim. You're like, no, you don't. It's one of the reasons CEOs hate us, right? CEO hates HR because we come to them and say, we have to treat everybody the same. And they're like, why? I'm a CEO. I don't want to be treated like Jimmy in the mailroom. And not in a conceited way, right? In a way that's just reality. There's certain things in my job that I have to do differently than Jimmy has to do down in the mailroom. Like there has to be different kinds of ways that we treat people in the organization. Again, I'm not saying treat unfairly, but there's just certain things that have to be done differently. And so some of that for me, it's the A/B testing. I think it's just, we don't use it enough. And we see it in other parts of the organization that use it really well. And I think we should take on that role.
Hey everyone, be agile. That's what we're talking about today, right?
For sure.
Be that. Flex up, be Gumby. Why not, right? So we talk a lot here about how work is changing. How do you predict work will change in the next 5 years?
I don't think the robots are going to take over. I do think robots, intelligent automation in general will continue to advance. So it always has, right? It's been doing it for decades. So that's no different. And so with the advent of some of the artificial, intelligence and some of the things that are going down, we would be remiss not to use that stuff in our organizations to become more efficient, more effective. But that opens up that whole new thing of, well, what do we do then? How do we do our job? And so we have to continue to kind of reevaluate the job we have now. What's that going to look like in a year, 3 years, 5 years, and start moving ourselves in that instead of just sitting at the desk going, well, doing this job today, and I expect I'll be doing this job for 20 years. No, you won't. I mean, so
nobody will. Yeah. Right?
You got to keep that future in mind of, you almost got to keep reevaluating and rebuilding yourself into something new. And again, when I, you and I both see tons of employees and leaders, the best leaders and employees that we see are the people who are always trying to reinvent their job to something new, because they are thinking about like, hey, I do the job now, that's fine, but there's going to be a better way to do this, or there's going to be a different way to do this, or maybe this job doesn't even exist because, hey, I just put this technology process in place, and now it gives me capability to go out and do something completely different that I think adds value to the company. You just have to have that mindset, and if you don't, we're in trouble. I also think we're getting away from what I'll say is like, because my mother's a baby boomer, and she started the company that I run, and in her mind, she struggled when I came in to first run the company, about 9 years ago, because she was always like, hey, if I see your butt in the seat, I know you're working. And I go,
seeing is believing.
I don't agree with that. I go, I think that person could sit in that seat and be a freaking vegetable and they're not doing anything. Like, I don't know if they're working or not. I said, I'm a metrics data driven person. If I set goals and I measure those things consistently out through the day, week, and month, I can tell you if that person's actually working or not, and I don't have to see them at all. They could be anywhere. Now, does that mean they're going to be working at home? No, but it gives me a heck of a lot more flexibility with my workforce to say, hey, if we set really good, competitive goals that we think is what the job should be, then I think if you do that, I don't care if you're at the office. I don't care. You could be in the Cayman Islands doing a job. It doesn't matter to me. Just do the job I hired you to do, and we're both going to measure it. We're both going to know, and it's going to be super transparent, and there's going to be nothing lost. There's been recent articles on the Amazon thing, right, where people are like, oh, Amazon is this awful place to work, and I'm like, what Amazon has done is actually put in really hard to reach measures and then go hire people or try to hire people that think that they want to go meet those measures. And I'm like, is that really a bad place to work, or they just have a really strong culture? I don't know.
That's a great question, actually. As we sit, I'm in Cambridge, Boston, and we're one of the contenders, right, to actually have Amazon here, which, I'm going to predict it's not going to come here. I welcome Amazon, by the way, with open arms, but I just have a feeling it's going in another direction. Good point, Tim. I haven't actually thought about that angle, so thank you for bringing that to light. So listen, I have to ask you this. You're known as the worldwide expert on hugging at work. What are the rules right now, Tim?
So the whole story was I was at a conference and at a SHRM conference actually years and years ago, and met with a female client. So she was the head of HR for a company, and we were doing a bunch of work with them from a staffing standpoint. And so I said, hey, we're both going to the same conference. Let's meet for dinner one night. And you and I do go to conferences all the time. We meet with dinner every conference we go to, we're probably having 2 or 3 dinners, right? And so
At
to me,
least.
this was
Sometimes 4.
yeah, in the same night. And so I didn't even think anything of it. We go to dinner, have a bottle of wine, have another bottle of wine. She gets, a little too tipsy. We go to leave, and I'm a hugger by nature. So I go in to give her a hug, and she comes right in and gives me a kiss on the mouth. And I was like, oh boy, I'm married. I got 3 kids. I'm happily married. I love my wife. I've been married 26 years. And so I tell the story of like, she went to her hotel room. I didn't follow. I walked outside. I called my wife right away. Thankfully, like this was a really big client. And so my wife knew this person. She had met this person. And so I said, look, like this just happened. And again, I don't think she thought like this was a romantic. I think just a little too many glasses of wine, just came in and decided like, hey, I guess a kiss is, she was a kisser. I'm a hugger, right?
Talk about transparency. Tim Sackett, you are one of a kind. Thank you for being transparent. Thank you for being born, as I said, and looking forward to that book and seeing you. I think you and I see each other next in Chicago, so I'll see you.
For sure.
Thanks for listening to Work Trends from Talent Culture. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And I'd be really grateful if you took a moment to leave a rating and review on iTunes. It helps other people find our show. If you know someone who would enjoy listening, please share it with them. You can learn more about the future of work at talentculture.com.